For those of you who are new to the Bridge Club, my name is Catherine Haskins, and I'm one of the co-founders of the Bridge Club. My partner is, she's on that side to me.
Hi, guys.
And the Bridge Club, we're recording this again to make sure everyone is aware. We're really trying to create a bridge of communication with issues that are important to the profession. It's really important that we connect on things that are affecting us all. And tonight's is super important. We are actually going to be diving into how this recent pandemic, or what we're still all living in, is actually affecting consumer demand and what they're going to be looking for. And many of you are already facing it in practice, and how is it going to impact us moving forward. We are absolutely beyond thrilled to be able to have Dr. Christopher Carpenter with us. He is the CEO for the Companion Animal Parasite Council. Both Brenda and I have known Chris a very, very long time. He is an incredible human being, but he has been at the helm of CAPC for more than 10 years. And he has a lot to share tonight with regards to consumer demands and what is happening. So this is Chris's first Bridge Club. So we are totally anointing him by making him do his first toast with us. So everyone raise your glass, and Chris, we're turning it over to you.
Yes, I am a veterinarian, and despite all the press, I love my profession. I've loved everything about it. I did a little wandering where I went into human health for 10 years, and that's a lot of people and a lot of money, but a lot of people. And I came back here, and I really love this industry. I love that it's small, and I love that we know each other. I know that I see faces from people I've known a long time. So mine's really simple. I mean, this is my second family. This is my veterinary family, my veterinary industry family, and a toast to a good rest of year for us, healthy and successful to us.
Cheers. That was really good, Chris.
Well, thank you. I did something. Okay, can I stop?
That was it. Okay, we're done. No, just kidding.
That's it. That's all I had. That's really all of my notes had.
Our first try.
So I'm going to start with something else that's a little, I guess, different, and I know we can't all talk about it in the format we're in, but I want you to think about something, and I want you to think about this 3 hours before we started this call, and ask yourself, what were you thinking about? Where were your thoughts? And while you're doing that, because we can't get answers, I'll share a little bit about me, and I'm no psychoanalyzing of my thoughts, but my thoughts, my daughter's school just sent out a message, and they're going to send her now to go clean out her locker. And so they have this whole schedule, and I'm like, wow, I mean, are they going to keep it in small numbers? So many thoughts. And she's 16. I go, I guess she'll be driving up on her own. And the other thought that really captured my mind, I was like, wow, I mean, think about it. She left at spring break thinking she was coming back, and now she's not. And now she's just there to maybe see like 8 or 10 friends who are going to be there at the same time, give them a hug and say bye. I mean, it was weird. And another thought just that's come up today, the tile in my front patio is breaking because too many UPS people come in at our house, and I can't repair anything. I'm the non-existent handyman. But I was thinking, wow, I get to have a Home Depot trip, because in these days when you're stuck here, I'm like, wow. And I share these thoughts not, again, to take you down my path of thinking, which is erratic and weird, but to say most of you, if you thought about it, and if I graphed your thoughts, and the table was like this, you were at this local area, and you were within the next day or two. We live as people in that area. We're thinking about today and tomorrow and what's going on for us now. That is our mindset. That's what occupies our time, and that's what we churn on. So it's just natural. If I give this example, and I've given this example to a lot of people, if you looked at your phone, it's natural that the weather apps we go to, we're most concerned. I mean, I've gotten so addicted to this, I go by hours, because I'm thinking, man, I want to go road biking today. When is it going to be warm enough? Because I'm a Florida wimp, I can't take cold temperatures. And so when is it going to hit 75 so I can go biking? My point being is, these apps were developed to make us think about local and timely. Like, very few of you right now were probably saying, wow, I wonder how are they going to solve the whole Tokyo Olympics thing? When's that going to come about? Because we don't live in that. And Catherine and I have talked about, what's really with an exclamation point made that is what's happened over the past 2 months. our focus, and I shared this, I don't know how your community is, but now everybody goes out at walks at night and you see everybody and you're waving to them and saying hi. Everyone in my county knows what the counts for St. Johns County COVID virus were, what the number of cases were. People even were telling me, hey, Chris, did you know somebody got infected at the Gate gas station? Don't go there. We live in our local communities and we live for today and tomorrow. And so if anything that's happened now, it's been reinforced that that is the behavior and that's the mindset. And I wanted this section to be small, so I'm going to take it into the veterinary clinic and talk about why this matters in the veterinary clinic. And we have a lot of data, but I promised everyone I would make this short. I'll just give one study. And it was actually marketing done by Martha Smith from VCA. They had about 400 hospitals in the Northeast. And they took about, it wasn't exactly half, but they had 300 households. And a big portion of the households got data on local prevalence of parasites. And the other cohort didn't get any. Didn't get an email. And then the next 90 days, they measured to see, well, like what happened with people in visitation. The people who got the email that showed that local data came into the clinic at a 58% higher rate. But what's even more fascinating is that when you looked at the two groups, once they were in the clinic, the people who got the email and the people who didn't, the people who got the email bought at a 56% higher rate. So for all of you who are out there who manage clinics, who visit clinics as accounts, the thing about it is it's very important and very successful strategy to be sharing local data. But there's an insight for this particular call that I've never talked about before that all of the VCA folks, the regional marketing folks shared with me that I also want to share, is they said more than any other promotion, the people at the clinic love this promotion, the technicians, the receptionists, because they got to talk about their local area. They got to be experts on not the nation and what typical heartworm infection is. They got to share their local county data. And it almost built a team bond, the marketing people told me, is that they got to share their local, and it made them proud. And if for those of you who have practiced, and I did practice a while ago, and everyone, a lot of the companies say, well, you should be talking, you have the white coat, recommend a product. Well, it's not that. We all start out affable. We like to share information. We bond with them by talking about their pet, by small talking. They love to interject this small talk about the community and going, wow, did you hear we had 5 new cases of heartworm disease diagnosed in our county? It's kind of like the weather conversation. You're able to slowly bring in, rather than force feed and jump into, you need to buy this product, you're saying, here's what's going on locally. Because our decisions in this brief section that I asked Catherine to introduce, I just wanted to make us remember that local and timely is still anything. And over this 10 years that we've done these maps, we know that if you talk locally, you get a lot more people engaged. And so I'm going to pause for a second, and I didn't know if there was anything else to add because I'm about to get to, if anything, like if you're going to say, wow, I don't know what Chris Carpenter said, this section is the one to pay attention to. I mean, this is...
So we'll give you a breather there for just a sec, because I do really want to make it really interesting here from the perspective of we've had data for a long time in this profession. The shift has really come that as a result that our human health has been so vastly impacted that now we're actually attuned to wanting to hear that information. So I think the connection point is this is not a new thing that CAPC's been doing, but yet we're finding that these resources are now available and they're going to feed what the consumer is seeking, though you have other stuff as well. But I want to be sure that now's the time when someone goes, oh yeah, I know, yeah. The difference is now, if I'm correct, that's what the consumer is now absolutely demanding, is to understand where we are, correct?
Yeah, as a board member said to me, say, Chris, everywhere I turn, people are on maps, and we were doing them 10 years ago. And my point is, we have just had a 2-month training period where everyone's been doing what? looking at their counties, looking at the counts, and then what else? Looking at the projections. And it's why we went into forecasting. And so that is a critical point that I'm going to re-emphasize when we get to this last section. But this next one is, to me, the most compelling, because it was kind of, everyone knows I'm a slow learner, but this one really started resonating with me. And I'm going to share a lot of personal stories that'll it's just interesting. Is that big data will make you feel uncomfortable. It's going to share things that you just don't expect, and I'll share this first story. I've got 2 or 3 little stories, and then I'm going to go to a very compelling big story to really prove my point. Is that when we first launched the maps, it was 2011, I proposed we should do this partnership with the laboratories. Let's do it. It took us a lot of money and a lot of time until around April of 2012, we launched the maps. 24 hours later, I had 2 board members who were specialists in parasitology saying, Chris, we got to take these down. They're going to destroy our credibility. And the reason behind that is we were seeing things that didn't fit with our paradigm. They were like, Alaska has heartworm positive patients. It also has Lyme disease. Montana is showing Lyme disease. And everyone's like, this is not what we were taught in school. This is not the flow we know. This is inaccurate, and we've got to take it down. And people don't know this, but there's probably people I saw on our attendance list who were at our board meetings. For many board meetings, for 2 or 3 years, we would talk about the maps and look at things. And I remember one discussion in particular, we were looking at Louisiana, and everyone's like, I don't understand why there's this big hot spot for Lyme disease in Louisiana. And it was all kinds of discussions about maybe the topography, maybe there's some other. Turned out, and I believe it was Vernon Parish, Fort Polk was there. There were people who were transferred in with dogs from other parts of the country who were there. And the last example I'll give of this is we've, as many of you know, we moved into forecasting, and we started forecasting, and we really got into forecasting, and our forecast kept coming up positive and showing that Lyme disease was moving into Kentucky. And we were like, oh my gosh, and there were people who got really upset about this. And again, listen, all of us kind of, when we get new information that doesn't fit what we believe to be the fact, we get a little, uncomfortable. And they were like, it can't be in Kentucky. We don't have any field research showing it's in Kentucky. Well, about 4 years later, Dr. Michael Yabsley in Georgia had a student who had a very innovative way of collecting ticks and showed that Lyme disease was, in fact, moving into Kentucky. So I share this with you because the biggest message I have, and I see it all the time, whether I'm presenting, whether I'm doing smaller groups, where I'm doing conference calls like this, people are like, well, that's an aberration, that's wrong, that's not in my county. Don't dismiss that positive test. And let me show you one of the most compelling cases, and I'm going to give you the most important reason why everything's changed. So we have been looking, I'm going to go to heartworm, and we've been looking at heartworm in Colorado for a long time. And there was always, Colorado is not considered endemic, it's not considered the heartworm capital of the world, but we kept seeing cases. And we started this new program we called the Top 10 Cities. And what we had done is redesigned our database where we could look at compared the new month of data to the previous month in changes in percent positive. So really we were looking at who jumped the most in percent positive. And any of you who are scientists right now, and many of you I've talked to you before, I saw a lot of you on the list and say, well, that's not good science. I mean, the cities with small data are going to jump most. But what was great about this program is we could go back all the years we had maps and run this program. And we did it over and over again for hundreds, about 150 months. And we saw that, again, Colorado, Denver area kept jumping up as positive. And it was really an interesting artifact, if you will. And then Dr. Jason Drank is the one who really brought it home for us. And again, like I said, this section, please take home because it's the key. Go ahead, Catherine. Did you have a question?
I want to stop to make sure that people have an opportunity to ask questions because we are getting into what I find is really interesting in all the years that I worked in parasitology, as well as working with different organizations. whenever we talked about these maps, whenever we talked specifically about things changing, we always talked about the fact that the deer population, or we talked about things migrating, right? But the world has changed so significantly. And before we go a little bit further, I did want to see, does anyone have any questions of what we've been talking about thus far? I think, the idea that our maps is data and it's really trusted, and that's even really more critical than ever before, is critically important. It's a bona fide source. But does anyone have any questions just before we jump into the next piece? I'll take that as, okay, so this is your big jump off point. This is it. So
yeah, and here it is.
What's been happening? So Chris, what's been happening with COVID? How did COVID spread so fast?
I go farther with that question.
I would say COVID traveled.
I got it. Here it goes, yeah. So and Catherine's making the connection to COVID. So and it's going to be the huge connection. So I built this up so massively, you're all going to be disappointed in what I'm going to tell you. But what Dr. Drake learned as he got the import data for Colorado, and he realized that there has been a massive transport of shelter animals from other areas into the state, to the point where in 2017 there was 9.5% of that population of dogs was imported. And so the big takeaway was there's other influences now, man-made, that are causing this disruption of what we consider, we all learned it, at least I did in school, the Gulf Coast tick is here and it's moving this way, slow, but we can predict it. Everything's off now because of travel. And here's the thing, we tried to quantify this, and we have Dr. Emilio DeBess, who's in Oregon with us, and he started looking at international travel into Portland. The number of animals that are coming in from international Asian countries is amazing. And my whole message to you is travel has changed everything. And here's the thing we haven't even begun to quantify, and we may try to do a survey. It's how many people, because I know in Florida, it gets so crazy hot and sticky here, everyone moves up to North Carolina and stuff and goes to the mountains where they're going up with ticks. And so there's this movement of animals. So we don't even have a handle on who's vacationing with animals. So here's what it is. Travel has changed all of our thinking. As Jason Drake said, veterinarians can no longer go with the normal migration. And to what Catherine was asking, and it's the perfect point, what did we learn with COVID? What did every country do? They shut down their borders because travel changes everything. When you bring in infected people or animals from other places, it blows up things. And we can talk about, there's a much more complex life cycle with parasites, but you just take heartworm, and if there's the right vector mosquito and you bring in a heartworm positive dog, there's very good studies about what the probability is that dogs in those nearby kennels are going to be infected. And so it's really changed it. And so what I would say from this is that most importantly, travel, in my mindset, has changed because there was a big debate a while ago about vector-borne disease. Only test for diseases you think are in the area. Don't. I believe strongly we should be testing these panels and looking for everything to find these new changes. And on my next topic, I'm going to hit on, we've been doing that in some cases and we've learned a lot, and I want to share that. But we also need to remember not just vector-borne, but fecal testing. We need to be testing because we have zoonotic diseases that we just don't totally have a handle on. And if any advice I would say to clinics, get those panels from the testing group you work with and do a panel and make sure, because especially, you got to wait for it, but in this next thing, we're talking about the health of the family now, and we've got to have that mindset. And I really believe that we no longer can sit with the paradigm of, and I'll make fun of myself. Back when I was in school, here's the slow migration due to animals and ticks. Here's where it's coming down. So travel has blown us up. I think in the last 2 months, we have learned that travel is crazy effective on the spread of any contagion, and parasites are not immune to this effect. And it actually, it solved one of the biggest aberrations we saw on the maps. But again, once again, the maps were right. We just didn't know what they were telling us. So good pause. I didn't know if, Catherine, you had another question that'll puzzle me and make me not understand what you're asking, but fire away.
Go, Brenda.
Yeah, I have one, Chris. So thinking about the whole travel thing, right? I mean, people are carrying their pets with them everywhere they go, like you said, to the mountains, to the beach, you know, to the neighboring state to visit their children or their in-laws or whatever that is. I'd be curious to know how many people here are having the experience seeing a pet brought in from out of state into their practice, you know, with an issue, because, right, things happen to our pets when they travel. And then do they even, if they did see pets from out of state, oh, sorry, unstable internet connection. If they did see pets from out of state, did they even think prior to this about what else might be with that pet brought in? I'm just curious about the reality of that.
Cheryl's raising her hand.
So, yeah, but yeah.
Yeah, so we had a very young dog that came in heart failure, and it turns out the dog had Chagas disease. Very sad because the dog ended up having, you know, passing away, but the dog was adopted from a southern state and brought to Michigan, where I had never seen Chagas disease in Michigan before.
Wow. That's a great example
But
of
that's
just how that's happening.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this was talking, I just started thinking about the impact that can have on a single veterinary practice, and then how it can spread into the community just from that one interaction with a pet coming in from outside. So everything you're saying, Chris, is just like starting to come home and roost, I think, with a lot of people who hadn't thought that way before.
Yeah,
So
it's crazy. I want to make sure I make this message clear. I mean, shelters have the greatest of intentions, and they're moving pets to places of high pet population to low, and they're trying their best to make everything no-kill. And we just have to think about the implications. And certainly, if someone adopted a pet from a shelter, I think it deserves additional screening and additional focus. And I will tell you, at least for CAPC and our belief is we want to quantify this travel. I mean, even if we go out and survey pet owners, because I keep going to this shelter thing, but I believe that traveling with pet owners, we have Dr. Marenton, who practices in Orlando, and he just was talking about the number of his clients that go to the mountainous areas to get away from the heat in Florida. And, you know, who knows how far they go up, maybe to New England. I mean, we know there's this migration between Florida and the New England states. What is moving? And that again has been brought home, and this is in our conversations with doing this presentation. It's another example. I think the first one I gave is that now mapping and local and timely, it's shown everyone the value of it. Everyone's been doing it. The second thing, what is that other thing we all learned? Wow, people coming from other communities. I mean, do you remember the news? I mean, there were states that were trying to keep people from other states coming in. And we won't be doing that with pets, but it doesn't stop us as a profession to stop and say, you know what, my mindset that this disease is not in my area is not the right mindset. It's that there's a probability it is, and maybe a good history with one of, you know, some of the examples we just got, maybe if you know the history, but we need to be testing. I'm just now a firm believer. This was one, and I know there are a lot of people on this call, I believe, who maybe we're ahead of this and understand the travel impact, but this changes everything to me. I mean, to me, and this next topic I'm about to hit, it makes it just so critical to test and look for things, even though it doesn't fit your paradigm. So I didn't know if there were any other questions.
Just one, Chris. So the one thing is we do have, can you make sure where people know they can get their local maps on the CAPC website? What's that address?
Yeah, so it's capcvet.org, and right at the top tab it says the parasite prevalence maps, and you can go to those, and you can go down to your local counties, and for the most part we have a high percentage of counties covered. But another thing I want to share, because many of you will say, oh, well, and it's a good question, and I'm going to anticipate it. What if my county is white? Well, first of all, make sure you're getting your testing data to the major laboratories and you're feeding them that data, because the greatest thing in the world with us to kind of get rid of the white space on our maps and get all the data in. But the other alternative is we've now I've mentioned to you, big data, the more data you have, the less, the more you can do, and the more accurate everything you do is. And now that we've worked with, and I have to put out a thank you to IDEX and Antech. I mean, they have contributed data for us for almost a decade, and it's allowed us to do so much. And we have so much data now that we can now forecast. And if you go to this website, Pet Disease Alerts, we forecast month by month. It's very consumer friendly. It's very easy to use. And I share that because every county is accounted for in that. And we have spatial ways of forecasting so that even though your county might have been white space, we could do it. So anyway, I have one even more important.
Hang on, Chris, before you get started. So we are past our 25 minutes. So those of you that need to jump off, please feel free. But those who want to stay on, we are continuing on with our conversation. But we always promise that we'll let people drop off if they need to. So Chris, go ahead.
Yeah, but don't leave this one. This is good. This is a good one. And this is why, and you know, there's a lot of things. I mean, CAPC is, I feel like we've done a lot of amazing things, but this is one where I'm proud of my profession, and I'll talk about why. And is One Health, a little commentary to start with this. I mean, One Health is this concept that we've all in our profession bought into, but maybe the primary care physicians and human haven't so much. And I think it's because it's hard to define a nebulous term, and to us it means something. But remember a few years back where we tried to do an outreach to the consumer and we talked about preventative medicine, and then Banfield did this study and said, man, clients don't even know what preventative medicine is. They're like, what are you talking about? Like, and I think we're doing that again. And what I've learned in my marketing career is you pick a hero topic. You pick a topic that's specific but is the best ever example of what you're saying. And I think the one for me with One Health has been Lyme disease. Now, the CDC a long time ago, in 2011, I had just joined CAPC, put out a study and said, hey, we see a relationship. We looked at these CAPC maps and we see a relationship between those maps and human health. But they said, well, we don't think, though, it goes down to the low percentages. What I'm really proud of is in 2019, a group of statisticians from universities like University of South Carolina, Clemson, partnered with parasitologists at Cornell and UGA to come up with an analysis. And again, what made us more successful is we had so much more data than before, 40 million data points for this Lyme disease. And we were able to show that there is a relationship between those maps that Catherine asked me to give you. If you look at the CAPC prevalence maps, they are a great indicator of risk. Canine risk for sure, but human risk too. And here's the thing about it is that what makes me so proud is our profession, veterinary medicine, we screen pets. We have pets come in, and back to what I said earlier, we should all do these panels because we screen pets who aren't symptomatic and we test for Lyme disease. They don't do that on the human side. And what we've given them now through the study is we've given this giant gift to them and said, look, you can use our maps because we've proven that it will be a good indicator of risk. And the reason that's important is they don't want to test human patients unless there's a good chance they might have it. So when you're in West Virginia, Kentucky, I mentioned earlier, and you're a doctor there, Lyme disease may be there, but if you used our maps, you could understand risk. And the last thing I'll say, there's probably people cringing or like, Chris, the maps aren't the best. They're the best tool we have. Human health has nothing else to estimate risk. And it's our profession that delivered this. But how does this come into the practice? And this is what I believe, and this is the other, I mentioned testing is important. Here's why I believe our conversation needs to change. Now, I shared earlier, just to review, I shared that veterinary teams want to share their local data because it makes them the local expert. It makes them involved in their community. It makes them say, I'm in St. Johns County, Florida. It allows them to say, hey, in St. Johns County, we had 17 positive cases. We get a lot here. I don't know why. Of heartworm, and it lets people talk about it, and it's powerful because you're telling them what's going on in their community, and you're kind of sharing the risk. Similarly, I shared with you that we should test for more things because some things may pop up. I mean, imagine if we said, hey, there was a Lyme disease case in St. Johns County. May it come from out of state, but remember, it allows us to say that message. If you're traveling, talk to us about it because you need to be protected. But this zoonosis thing is the thing, and I'll talk in a minute, we're going to emphasize this at CAPC because here's what I believe just in this Lyme disease case. You need to be testing for this disease because you're protecting not only the pet, you're protecting the family. And tick prevention is not optional to me. I mean, you're protecting this family, and if you're not protecting against Lyme disease up there, you're protecting against ehrlichiosis. I am such a believer that tick prevention should be on every pet because you're protecting the family. You're eliminating the chance. Take Lyme disease. It's not going to be the tick causing the dog to infect the child, but it's the same tick. And if you keep them off the dog, you keep them out of the house and you protect the family. And we have this ability now with the maps and with our conversations to change it into this, I don't know how to say it, kind of sterile conversation about you should protect your pet, to say we're recommending prevention against ticks, and I'll bring in now also intestinal parasites. We're testing against intestinal parasites, hookworm, roundworm, because we're looking after the family. You can use our prevalence maps to look, but we're focused on the health of your family, and as veterinary professionals, we believe in One Health. And these preventatives and tests are for your family. And I really believe the mindset we need to go forward with, and I think that's, again, I don't think there's any blessings that have occurred from what's happened, but let's talk about what's changed in everyone's mindset. They believe in mapping. They look at disease. For 2 months, they've looked at disease mapping. They looked at forecasting. They believe they want to know what's going on, and now they understand the relationship. Everyone will tell it, whether it came from a lab or it came from a wet market, whatever, it came from animals. It came from animals. And so this is related to animals. And this is a delicate dance because we don't want to say, man, animals are so terrible, you need to get rid of your dog. It's a delicate dance when you talk about zoonosis, but what you do say is, these pets, my dog Jackson is a member of my family. If I protect him, I protect my family. And so...
I don't want to interrupt you, but I think that I'd be curious, again, just like asking out to the crowd here tonight, if that kind of reason why isn't feels far more powerful than feeling like you're selling product, right? I mean, Krishna, you and I both worked together for a long time too, selling products that prevented these things. And the biggest thing we always heard was, I don't want to be marketing somebody's product, but if your reason why is that this product helps you protect not only your pets but your family, does that feel like a stronger reason why in veterinary practice that's going to make it something you actually look forward to talking about, as opposed to feeling forced to talk about?
Well, and Brenda, if I can build on that, such a brilliant point, and rather than start out with the product, and I don't have a product, so I use my mug, it's like, buy this, it's good for you. Start with the reason why and start it in a local conversation and say, listen, did you hear that, Lyme disease, let's try heartworm. I'm in a heartworm endemic area. Did you hear that we had 5 cases? And just start it in a conversation. Start local, start with that conversation and say, and make it move into the family. There's also intestinal parasites that are just omnipresent in most every region of the country. We need to do this fecal, and I'm doing it. Here's the message, and I've shared this with Brenda and Catherine. The veterinary profession has been given this opportunity to grab this space of One Health, and if we walk away from it, and listen, I practiced, and granted it was like 10, 15 years ago, it's longer than that, that's how embarrassing old I am, but I know how busy you go. I know that people don't show up, I know that emergency cases come in, I know that your x-ray processing breaks down, I know all that, but here's what all I'm saying clinics should do. Once a month, get together and talk about the numbers for your thing, and talk about it so everyone knows them and shares them in casual conversation. Put them on a whiteboard, throw them up one time on that is maybe 20 minutes of effort because CAPC is giving you everything, but do you realize what you've done when you do that? You've made your clinic the expert on your local community. It's not the Chewy person, it's not the PetSmart person, it's you who is the expert. You are the professional who knows One Health and knows your community. And I believe the long-term second, the last thing I will say, don't do it once and quit. There's a term, and I know Brenda knows it, called frequency. It's about doing little things over and over again. And I really, truly believe this opportunity that's happened, I shouldn't say this opportunity, it sounds mercenary, this situation where now everyone's attuned to the fact that animal health and human health is related, mapping is good, and I want to know what's happening tomorrow. Use our resources, and that's it. And I'm so grateful for the Bridge Club to let me share this, because, man, everything that's happened has just validated that big data could play an amazing role in the future of our practices. I really believe that. I really do. And if it didn't come out, I do. So that's
what I would say is what I find really interesting about this whole thing is this has all existed. We're talking about the impact to the family overall, but the reality is the consumer's mind has opened up to understand. So you're talking about, what I find is really interesting is you mentioned we all get the animal and the zoonotic piece. I think there's one more piece to it. We understand risk now. Risk has a very different term in our world than what it had 6 months ago. Risk now means how deadly can that be? And if I take one small action now, and we all have flattened that curve, but the notion being is if I can take and do one thing that's going to protect my pet, protect my family, then I better do it. So I think the consumer mindset is opened up to be very much amendable to absolutely anything the veterinary team says to the pet owner that's going to protect overall. And it only, to your point, further elevates the position of the veterinary profession in the eyes of the pet owner overall.
Absolutely. It's interesting the way the inability to get veterinary care generally right now because of all the restrictions is just going to create that pent up demand. So it really does, Catherine, to your point, and Chris, to your point, now's the perfect time. And I hate to, again, say capitalize on that, but we all know how incredibly valuable this profession is. So this really could be taking opportunity out of chaos and really taking this opportunity now to elevate that veterinary profession and bring us to the forefront in a way that we've struggled from. I mean, hello, I was like the, queen of trying Partners for Healthy Pets, for crying out loud. And, all the best intentions, but the ears weren't open, and now they are.
The ears are very open. So we are at the very tail end of where we are. So I want to be sure if there's any questions or comments. I love seeing the very forward-thinking progressive practices in there. So we do want to make sure you're asking any additional, or turn yourself off and mute and shout it on out. And then what we'll do is we'll do some final thoughts where he can really tell us he loves big data from Chris. And any parting shots, and then we'll do our closing toast. So any other final comments? And oh wait, Kurt, go for it.
You asked me to ask questions, and I don't really have questions, but I would like to challenge the group's mind briefly. Chris, when you talked about, we'll just call it transport of bugs, I think as an industry we need to take another step or two up higher. Instead of looking at it from 10,000 feet, we need to look at it from 20,000 feet, because our pets, our horses, our cattle are being bedded in materials that don't originate always in that geography. There's an entire quarter horse business, dressage business that is moving animals and straw and hay across the country significantly. Many of you don't know that I grew up at a fur farm and exotic business back in the 60s when it was okay to raise raccoons and ferrets and so on and ship them all over the country. It was not unusual for us to receive animals from other parts of the country with ticks, fleas, whatever, that came in airplanes. I received a box from Amazon 2 days ago, opened it up, and there was a mosquito in it. So I really think we have to think about this from an omnichannel sort of mindset. 80% of our food comes through Southern California.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if we look at the origin of fresh products, at one point in time, about 80% of it comes through Southern California. We have a vector-bearing omni-channel system to consider. And the other thing I want to commend you on is this local conversation focus. And I'd like for the group to also think about they don't have to be the only voice. My ex-wife, when we were married, was a cub reporter. She grew up in a small city, did not have any idea what a 4-H person did or an FFA person did, and was always surprised at what she learned at county fairs, etc. She was hungry for new information. So as practitioners, as hospital managers, as veterinary,
I think we lost him a little bit.
and sustaining that dialogue to utilize the maps is just awesome. And it works if you'll utilize those people. You don't have to be the primary communicator. You can be the expert. So those are the observations that have come to me through this conversation. And again, I applaud the work that CAPC's done to move towards the mega data. It isn't even big data, it's mega data. But I think there's a ton of factors that local practitioners need to see in their minds what's going on in their area. Everyone knows that I'm a real proponent of the multi-species practice, and I think that's where a lot of our intuitive knowledge exists today, because we're dealing with multiple vectors in multiple species.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Brenda, Catherine, for giving me a little insight there.
Absolutely.
Absolutely great. Okay, Chris, we are at the tail end. So here is your time to be able to do that parting thought, and then we'll do our closing toast.
No, the only thing I would say is that we believe so much in this, and this mapping has become such a part of us, is that we've now moved into, if you go to that pet disease alerts, we launched our lepto maps, which is another zoonotic disease. It's a virus, and it's a whole different mindset. It's not about, here's how many cases. It's basically, if it was in your county, we show up positive, because that means there's an outbreak, and you need to be alerted. And so we believe our dream is in the future, in the next couple of years, that we have a lot of those diseases that are extremely, they're viruses, so their spread is rapid, and to alert people. Because we believe this big data is really important for us to leverage and alert people in a timely manner. And I'll use one more time, I have to pick up my little phone, but I mean, back to the phone analogy, my vision is like, if we could have that same opportunity with diseases to alert people to what's going on, and it just reinforces them to the critical role of the veterinarian. And again, thanks to the Bridge Club. I've really enjoyed it. Thanks for this is late night for me, so I'm really glad I stayed up for this.
Okay, so with that, we do want to thank Dr. Chris for coming. And when we send the video out to you all, we'll include the links so that you have those maps easily accessible, so that you have them for sure. But Chris, do you have a final toast for you before we sign off for the evening?
I didn't know there was a second toast, but it's obviously from this presentation. I just hope, I would really love it if veterinarians lock in and position themselves as the One Health experts this year, and really show, we're already an essential service, but my vision is that we really become and show the value, and I hope for that, and here's to us taking that strong position with our clients.
Cheers, everybody.
Cheers.
Cheers. And just as a side note, here's to getting out of taking care of the kids at bedtime. So way to go on that one. So you can join us for any Bridge Club, because we always do this at bedtime on purpose, so that you don't have to do that. With that, everybody, we hope you all continue to stay safe and sheltered. And we do have more coming up in the Bridge Club, so please check out our website. In addition, we are doing happy hours every Friday, except for this Friday. So if you are interested, send Brenda or I an email, and we will be happy to invite you. It is very casual. But with that, everyone, have a fabulous night. and cheers.